Every golfer is different. Every golf course is different. Every day is different. The aim of the World Handicap System is to take all these differences and produce a single measure of a player's golfing ability. A handicap index reflecting the score a player can achieve when playing well. To do that, it must start with a handicap calculation which balances responsiveness and stability, consistency and flexibility. At the core of the handicap calculation is your score, demonstrating how well you played your round relative to the course's difficulty, as determined by its course rating and slope rating, and any conditions that might have made the course harder or easier to play on the day. A record of your scores is maintained, and your handicap index is based on an average of the best 8 of your last 20 scores. Because your worst scores are discarded, your handicap index reflects the score you're likely to achieve on your better days. The more scores you can submit, the more accurately your handicap index will reflect your golfing ability. While any player can have a bad day or a run of poor form, form is temporary. That's why the handicap calculation does more than just look at your most recent best scores. It retains a memory of your lowest handicap index during the past 12 months and provides mechanisms to ensure bad days don't cause your current handicap index to increase too quickly from that low index. Under normal circumstances, your handicap index should never increase more than 5 strokes above your low handicap index over a rolling 12-month period. Players have great days too. Juniors and beginners in particular can improve dramatically over a short period of time. The handicap calculation can identify this, applying additional reductions to a handicap index when a player achieves a score of 7 strokes or more below their current handicap index. A calculation won't always detect a real change in a player's ability. For that reason, a handicap committee has the tools and can adjust a player's handicap index to better reflect their ability. All these elements come together as your handicap index is revised promptly, ready for the next day or soon after. The World Handicap System delivers a handicap index to all players that is calculated in a consistent way across the globe. It allows players everywhere to continue to enjoy the game they love, wherever they play and whoever they're playing with or against.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the course handicap. Now realize that probably the most significant change for golfers in the U.S. under what we're currently doing from a handicap system is the course. The benchmark basically is now par. So under the rules of handicapping, a course handicap will be the number of strokes a player receives to play down to the par of the tees being played. So here's what the formula is going to look like. So this is our current formula, handicap index times slope rating divided by 113. And now we are adding course rating minus par. So we used to have this 3-5 reduction when you would play from separate tees. 3-5 essentially goes away. So we don't have to have that conversation. All right? Now, here is essentially what it's going to look like for 13.5. All right? Over here to the left is currently the USGA course handicap. All right, and then we're going to go all the way over here to the far right, and that will be the world course handicap. So essentially you can see that the calculation takes par in the course rating into effect and gives essentially what we used to call a target score, but now it's still a target score. But essentially you can see there's a little bit more of a differentiation there. So you don't have to essentially adjust when somebody would go to a forward set of tees to have an equal competition. All right? Now realize that since par can ultimately change a little bit, this course handicap could change based on the par as well. Now I'll talk a little bit about par and our adjudication issues as far as the Miami Valley Golf Association a little later in the presentation. But this calculation now, and everything now in the World Handicap System, rounds up from 0.5, which had not been the case previous. There used to be some truncation. All right. So let's put this into play for a course around here. So 13.5 at NCR. All right. Black, blue, green, and combo. So the black right now is a 17. Now with this new calculation of the index times the slope minus or divided by 113 plus the course rating minus par, now it's 20. All right, so this is the day-to-day number that you're going to play with in 2020, whereas right now it's 17. And as we follow it through, you can see the blue course handicap doesn't change, but it's 2 shots less now in the World Handicap System. Combo essentially is 1 shot greater as far as for 2020, and it was 1 less in 2019 currently. And then the green, obviously you can see that calculation. So there's a wider dispersion of what your course handicap is going to be. And that essentially takes into account this new rule 3-5 in the old days. Now, the other thing that you have to think about is what par is ultimately going to look like, because let's say that there is a yardage on a particular hole, number 6, for example, on the south course. If you play from a forward tee, it may only be 430 yards. So then what's that par from that set of tees? So if essentially folks play as a par 4 instead of a par 5, then there's a little additional calculation there. Now I will say that from a golf association standpoint, we feel that we will adjudicate to whatever the par is on that hole, because those people who play a shorter golf course essentially need to play a shorter golf course. We want them to play a shorter golf course. Moving forward would essentially penalize them a stroke. And we also have to realize that the course rating system only takes certain lengths into consideration. They don't take age into consideration. So it's kind of I think it's better, particularly from a mathematical standpoint. Okay, so now, because we have a course handicap, we're going to have more opportunities to use a playing handicap. And essentially what that does is, what you haven't seen yet that you will see, is there's no bonus of excellence. So the old calculation used to take 96% of what that differential was to essentially establish what your handicap index was. That goes away. So there's no bonus of excellence. So with that said, when we go to play, you know, that is a 4-ball calculation right there, where you take the 15, divide it times it by 85%, and then you come up with the 13 rounding to 5. So that depends on the form of play you have, which essentially so it's all about equity, various forms of competition. It used to be separate for men and women. There was different recommendations for percentages. And for those of you who run events or leagues or whatever the case may be, you're going to need to start thinking about what the day-to-day adjustment's going to be through whatever system that you essentially run. So there's a little more burden here. All right. So in match play, these are the percentages. In stroke play, those are the percentages. So when you just go out and play, a stroke play event or a Stableford event, you used to have the bonus of excellence, which was 96%. Because that's no longer there, now they're recommending that you take 95% of that. Okay, so these are for your competitions, your leagues, whatever the case may be. And then you see the 4 balls, 85%, and all those different forms. Now, there are copies of that available in your packet, and it is the salmon color. And by all means, this is something that you're going to need to start thinking through as you get closer to the season. Okay. It's going to take fewer scores to obtain a handicap index. It used to be 5 18-hole rounds. Now it is 54 holes in any combination. Better. Still not perfect, but better. there's no limit as to how long it takes for them to get those 3 scores. And you're going to see this throughout. They're really pushing for better data integrity, so systems are going to default to hole-by-hole entry on the kiosk, on the app. You can certainly bypass it by just hitting an extra button, but realize that we're in the world of data and data integrity and knowledge, and where we can go with the hole-by-hole data probably will be better for us long-term. The other thing is we have a max handicap now of 54.0, handicap index I should say, because that could clearly go higher based on the slope, and that's for both genders. For men, I think that's a 18 shot difference. For ladies, it's a 14 handicap index difference. So again, more opening, more welcoming.